Well, hello everybody. It's Danny back from Deep South Homestead. Guys, I told you I was going to do a video about the ball canning jars and lids and what I found out. What's some of the things that's going on? Why are we having the problems we're having? Is there anything we're going to be able to do about it? Things of this nature. Well, first of all, I want to talk about the ball canning jar itself. Now, Ball was actually a company that was created because jars were invented in the late 1880s, and the Ball canning jar was kind of patented and got going around, I don't know, it was around 1884, somewhere in that area like that. It got to be popular and become known as the home canning jar at that time. And the crazy thing about it is today we still call it Ball canning jars. We still call it Ball lids and all this kind of stuff. But actually Ball left the canning jar business and all that about 1993 and sold the trademark and the name to another company. The company was called Jarden. And Jarden bought the right to use the name Ball. And Jarden made Ball jars and lids and Ball products for several years until they finally sold out to Newell Brands Company. They were not Brands, Newell Brands Company, and they make Ball canning jar lids and stuff, Mason and stuff like this, Kerr. All those up to present day now. One of the things that we've seen happen in 2019 was I think it was 2019 or 2020, was the closing of the plant in Muncie. I think it was Indiana. They had a plant there that they closed down and moved it to a place called Fisher. I believe it's Fisher, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. And there's been a lot of hoopla about the canning jars and the lids. Well, there's a shortage. Well, yes, there is a shortage, and the funny thing about this is not the first shortage we've had. There was the Ball lid shortage. That's what it was called, the Ball canning lid shortage of the 1970s. Because see, we had just went through a recession in the early 70s, and as a result of going through the recession, people began to panic, and they all began to start canning again. And in the 1970s, probably around 75, this is how weird. This is how much the government changes and things like this happen, is that they actually began to have congressional hearings and stuff like this about trying to find out, did the company do something wrong? Were they trying to manipulate the market and all this kind of stuff? And the answer was no. I mean, it's just that there was an astronomical amount of people that began to start canning because they kind of freaked out because of the recession that we had gone into. Well, fast forward to 2020, and people kind of, let me back up. Let me say this. In about 1976, everything kind of got leveled out in 1976, and you could start canning however much you wanted. I mean, they flooded the market with products and stuff like this, and it was basically over by 1976. But fast forward to 2020, and we're facing basically the same issue again. Because you see, this is the funny thing about canning jars. The company always sold some canning jars. I mean, it wasn't high on their list, because Ball actually went over into the aerospace business and different other things. And now that Newell Brands had it, they manufactured Ball jars, had an ample supply of them. The Ball lids, it was just huge supplies of them out there. People mainly use the Ball jars for things like drinking glasses. I mean, restaurants would buy them. You see them a lot at Cracker Barrel and things like this. They got a handle on the side of them. People use them for making candles and for weddings, and they began to use the ball jars for making lanterns and lamps, and all kinds of things was made out of ball jars. Everything except canning. And they manufactured them, wasn't high on the list, but they kept a good supply of them. But when 2020 rolled around and COVID-19 set in, and people really began to panic because they were locked up at home. They couldn't go anywhere. They was like, oh my gosh, this could get to be serious. And the old way of canning came back into existence. And basically the market was flooded with people trying to get back into canning. And as a result, the company just wasn't prepared for making that many jars or lids or anything. They didn't have the glass or anything like that, or the metal to work with. I mean, it just wasn't big on their list. And as a result, in order to try to keep up with the market, they began to outsource a lot of the lids and things like this, and until they could expand the factory and get up and running and making more jars and things like this. And today, if we're not careful, you'll end up buying all aftermarket lids and stuff, and they're not as good. And you go, well, how can I tell? Because I don't know the difference. There's ball lids out there's lids out there with the name ball on them. They're not ball lids. They're aftermarket. They're Chinese-made lids. And people go, well, how do I know when I buy them? If you get, let me say this, if you get a true ball lid, the little box of flats will say made in America, and the rubber seal that's around them will be a reddish color to it. If the little box does not say made in America, it's not a true ball lid. And you say, well, what about the Mason? They're all basically the same thing. The same thing goes for them. If they don't have the red ring around them, they're not American made. The Chinese, I call them the Chinese made ones, or the aftermarket, whatever you want to call them, they have a white ring around them. And they're not the true lids. We won't buy them if they're not made in America. We just won't buy them. Lots of people are getting fooled, especially if you go to Amazon or somewhere like these off-brand places like this to get canning lids and things like this. They're buying aftermarket lids, and you're not getting the real deal. Wanda and I run into an issue here because we live in the Deep South, and the humidity is always in the 90s, and our lids begin to rust, even with the Mason lids. That's the reason we quit using Mason, the gold lids. We don't use them unless it's on jellies and jams. Anything that we have to pressure can, we will not use anything but the silver American-made ball lids with the red rubber on them, because of the simple fact we're having a lot of them begin to rust, the gold-colored ones, because of our humidity. And it seems like when you put them through a pressure canner, it does something to those lids. And I don't know what it is. You have to put some salt in the lids, and I don't know if the salt gets back out in the water and it impregnates the metal in some way, and it causes them to rust. I'm not sure about that, but we're having a lot of issues with rusting lids that are like that. Now, a lot of people say, well, then I just go over to Tatler. And a lot of people do, and a lot of people like Tatler. I'm not knocking them. I have used them in the past. When I pressure cans with them, I had I'm going to say a 50-50 ratio of them actually working. I had a lot of failed stuff with them, and I quit using them. Lots of people say they've had a 100% success rate. And it's probably my fault. I probably did something a little wrong. It's just that they were so expensive when I bought them. I bought a bunch of them when I bought them. And then after having such a failure with them, I just really don't use them anymore. And people are saying, well, and this is out there on YouTube now, and I know some of the people personally that do this, and I don't condone this. They say you can reuse the lids. And I've seen people successfully do it. Me personally, I go by Ball's regulations. They say that the lids are not made to be reused. So I don't reuse the lids. And I would advise you not to reuse them. Lots of people do, and it's a personal preference with you. But I want to, if I'm going to go through the effort of canning my food and trying to preserve my food the best way I can, I don't want to run the risk of the lid not sealing by using it a second time. So I'm going to stick with the guidelines, and I'm going to say, you know what? You know, let me say this. If it come down to hardships and there was just no lids out there and you couldn't get them anymore and they like banned them or something, I would would probably say, you know what? I might water bath in them. And I might seal things like jellies and jams and things to this nature out there. You know, I would probably do that. I try to not to bend them when I take them off and be very careful with them. I might reuse them in circumstances like that. But as far as pressure canning them, I probably would not do that. So guys, you know, why do we have the shortage that we have today? It's because of the virus. People got panicky, and actually, I'm going to say this. I'm kind of glad that this all happened, because it puts people back onto the right track of maybe getting them back to being more self-sufficient and not depending on someone else for their stuff. Although I will say this, I do figure at some point in the future that there's probably going to be some sort of a let me say this, there's going to be some sort of a stroke of the pen that might outlaw home canning, because they say, well, it's just not healthy. You don't know what you're doing, and you could poison yourself, and that's hogwash. That's not true. If you watch what you're doing and follow the guidelines with water bathing and pressure canning and all that, you'll be just fine. You know, the powers to be want us to think that we can't take care of ourselves. So I say, yes, we can. And so guys, I wanted to make this little quick video about the Ball jars and lids and stuff like this. Ball doesn't make them anymore. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. They don't make the jars, they don't make the lids or anything like that anymore. Ball made Kerr, Mason, you know, Ball, they made them all. Let's realize that Newell Brands makes them now, and they may at some point sell out to somebody else. It's just that the trademark from the Ball Corporation just keeps handed down, keeps getting bought, because it's a logo and a name that everybody knows. And let me insert this. People go, are old Ball jars worth anything? And yeah, the answer is yes. Some of the old ones are worth a good bit of money, several $100s a piece. And the proper way to find out which jar you have and what the age of it is, every few years, Ball changes the word Ball or the logo just a little bit. And they, if you go online, there's a chart that you can look at. It tells you the periods in history when they changed the Ball logo, and you can date your jars based on that. You know, there's lots of things out there that I can say. There's different colored Ball jars. There's blue ones and green ones and you know, clear ones and different color ones. And yes, I'm going to say this. There is even today, there is a minute trace of lead that is still used in the jars, in the making of the jar. I don't worry about it myself personally. I've never seen anybody die from lead from a jar of food. I don't think it's ever affected anybody in any way. So I'm not going to be concerned about it. I'm just going to be honest. But if you go to looking, you'll probably find out there's a minute amount of lead in these glass jars, which there's probably lead in all glass jars of glasses and all. As a matter of fact, you can buy leaded crystal and all kinds of stuff. I just sold a whole pile of leaded crystal that I had. And, you know, so I wanted to throw these few things out there also about Ball. So don't freak out. My understanding is the company is gearing up to manufacture more lids, more jars and stuff like that. It's just beware of the lids. You know, just beware of the lids. And look, when it comes to pressure canning, beware of the jars, because not all jars are made equal. True pressure canning jars have the word ball, curve, mason, all that wrote on the jar. If you get a jar that's just slick all the way around it and there's no writing on it anywhere, that jar is not recommended for pressure canning. That jar is for water bathing only. And you can buy water bath only jars. They're out there. They require a different kind of lid to seal them. And you can get those too. I used to buy them from a vendor for, we pickled stuff in them to sell. We made jellies and jams and syrup and all kinds of stuff in these type jars. They were a little less expensive. You didn't have to pay the high price of a ball or a cur or mason jar or something of that nature. So beware of the jar you buy and what you're going to use it for, and beware of the lids. Check to make sure they're American made and they have the red rubber seals on them. If they got the white, I personally wouldn't buy them. Okay, so guys, I want to throw this video together, put it out there for you. I promised y'all I would make it. So happy canning and good luck finding what you need. I talked to a guy in town at the hardware store. I said, kind of joking with him, I said, hey, I said, those ball lids and jars are on the way, ain't they? And he looked at me, he goes, yeah, right. He said, they're not even telling us when they're going to have anything. So, but I have heard that some companies are getting stuff in and getting restocked, and that's a positive note. So just keep looking, because they're out there in different places. They are starting to come in because spring's right around the corner, and they're going to probably try to get them out there. As a matter of fact, the company did shut down shipping lids and stuff like this throughout the winter months and stuff like this until they could get the inventory built back up to be able to hit the spring market for the canning season. So, guys, I hope the information today has been what you wanted to hear, and I hope that it helps you in making some decisions. If you're late to canning, go hit estate sales, garage sales, all these kind of things, looking for where elderly people have passed away and there's possibly lots of old canning jars that was left behind. Sometimes you can get a good deal at those places. Lots of people are doing it. Maybe that'll help you out a little bit. Thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.